Hello everyone, I am Anakin Blitz, coming back for another World of Tanks Blitz video, and today we will be taking a look at the FV4005 and going over this tank, reviewing it, and this will be kind of a guide on this tank and talking about how to play this tank, as well as if this grind is really worth it. So, we're gonna, this video was suggested by someone in one of my live streams today on gravity force mode, so I have decided to make the FV4005 video. So we're going to be talking about how to play this tank, but starting off, we're going to be looking at the statistics on this tank. So looking here in Blitz Hanger, we are going to see the main statistics that this tank has. First of all, you have a really nice damage per minute. You have a good burst damage, and this is a clipper tank, so this is what makes this tank so special. So this tank is kind of a very unique tier 10 tank destroyer because it is an auto loader. Now there is of course the FV4005, which is also an auto loader, but this is like a true auto loader because this tank fires 3 shells in its magazine and 460 average damage per shot, which is just an insane amount of damage. And you have a 3-second in your clip period with a 19-second, which can be shortened down magazine reload, which is just really nice. You're able to get out a crazy amount of damage in a really short amount of time, and that's just what this tank does really well. You have this crazy, you're able to get 1,380 damage out in a matter of 9 seconds, which is just absolutely insane. Keep in mind that this tank also has some nice penetration with a solid 280 millimeters of standard penetration, as well as a very nice premium penetration of 370, which is just absolutely insane as well. And combine that with that, you have decent accuracy, not the greatest accuracy, but you do have decent accuracy, as well as a nice 10 degrees of gun depression angle, which can also be really helpful. So now we're just going to look into the stats more in detail here in Blitz Hanger here. So starting off, we have an 1800 hit point pool, which is just an average for a tank destroyer, a bit low for some, but you have 3,431 damage per minute, which is pretty nice. Keep in mind that this is an auto loader though, so you will struggle during that long clip reload, but this is a tank destroyer. You are able to reposition during this time. And what else do we have here? You have the shell velocity. It's not terrible. It's just about average penetration, loss over distance, caliber. Alright, so now we're going to get into the gun handling. The dispersion 0.319 is not that bad when moving, 0.2 when rotating, 0.2, and when rotating the turret, 0.16, and after the shot it is 4. So you can see the dispersion values are pretty nice on this tank. Overall, the accuracy is pretty nice, and it is a after shot though 4, so you do have that little you will like have to aim in a bit after you but I'm gonna go over some consumable things after. So one nice thing about this tank is it has super consumables, which is very nice. These are the super consumables that are available on only certain tanks, and they're really good. First of all, there is the improved engine boost, which is basically an engine power boost but better. Then you have the reticle calibration, which decreases your dispersion and your aiming time, which makes it a lot easier to take accurate shots across the map. And then what you have here is shell reload boost, which is a unique consumable to only this tank out of the entire game. And what does this consumable do? Well, it's really unique because what this consumable does is it shortens your interclip reload, making it faster to fire all of your shells. This is really, really useful when you need to get out those shells, and this is a really nice consumable to have. Now, we're just going to look at the rest of the stats. You can see a 10 degrees of gun depression is very nice for this tank. Now, the mobility is decent, but it is not the greatest, but you have a 34, hold on, I realize I'm still in the Discord, crap. Alright, but you have a pretty decent top speed of 40 km per hour forwards and 18 km per hour backwards. This is a really nice amount. So the reverse speed is really nice. You're able to empty out your clip and safely reload back in time by backing out of cover, or backing into cover, should I say. Now, everything else is pretty nice, like the power to weight ratio and the traverse speed is all pretty decent. Now the size though, this thing is just absolutely huge. This tank also, I'm not gonna lie, is kind of ugly, and that is kind of, yeah, it looks pretty ugly with this big boxy look, and that's just not really the best look on a tank, but it is really boxy. Now we're gonna talk about something that is going to make everyone, sad about this tank. You saw all these good things. Well, here comes the armor profile. As you can see at the top, there is, crap, where is it? Okay, I haven't used Blitzhanger in a while, but anyways, I'm just gonna, here. Alright, as you can see here in the game, there is absolutely no armor. Just look, no armor whatsoever. 14 millimeters of HE, or not HE, I mean armor. Meaning you can get HE penned by everything on the turret, as well as the whole armor is extremely weak as well. You can see that there is absolutely no armor, so just do not trust this armor at all, because there is no armor on this tank. This tank is just absolute paper, and you will get HE'd. Now, one huge disadvantage about this tank is not only is it so huge, it has no armor, meaning you will get HE'd and just absolutely wrecked all the time. Now, that is just a, that can be really bad in a lot of different situations. It will, not really be, but the good thing, though, is you do have a really nice gun, which can really help out in a lot of scenarios, and this is basically what this tank is really known for, is the gun itself. You can see that the camo rating is also not the best. It is decent, but it is not that good. So now what we're going to do before we get into the playstyle of this tank is we're going to look at Blitz Stars Compare, and we're going to compare this tank to some other tier 10 tank destroyers that I feel are a bit similar to it. And we're going to talk about this tank, comparing them a lot. First of all, there is the FV4005 the Grill 15, and the Object 263. Now, the only reason why I chose Object 263 is just because it has a 460 average damage gun as well. So, all these tanks except for the 263 have basically no armor, so we're gonna look at each tank. You can see that the 4005 is a decent damage per minute. It is weird because it has a clip, but it is not that good compared to these other single shot vehicles like the Grill 15, for example. Now, the penetration is actually the lowest except for the Grill 15. It is lower than the 215V183 and the 263. So the 280 penetration can sometimes not be too great, so that can be an issue at times, but otherwise you have, of course, there's the clip, makes it kind of different. Now, you do have a decent shell velocity. It is not as good as some tanks, but it is decent. And we will now go into the the gun handling of this tank. It is meh, it is decent, it is not that great. Of course, the Grill 15 is kind of an exception, but you can see that the aiming time is pretty nice, and the dispersion is also not terrible, but it is a bit high. And the gun depression is really nice. 10 degrees of gun depression is pretty hard to find on a tank destroyer in tier 10. I guess not that hard, but it is quite difficult to find. Now, the mobility you can see is also pretty nice, but compared to the Grill 15, the 263, and a lot of other tier 10 tank destroyers, your mobility is a bit slow, but you do have the super consumable, which is able to get you to reposition to a lot of different times. When you need that consumable, you can use the speed boost. So what I would definitely suggest to equip on the FV4005, if you haven't already, is definitely the enhanced improved speed boost, because that is something that you really need on this tank. Also, that inner clip consumable can be really helpful in a lot of situations, but the reticle calibration can help as well. But the accuracy is not too bad, and in the whatever it's called, the one that the inner clip shell reload boost can just really help out in a ton of scenarios. Sometimes you just really, don't you wish when you're playing an autoloader that you could get that one final shell out before he gets back behind cover? Well, that is exactly what this consumable can do. So that is just what that consumable really does. So I would definitely suggest using that consumable, though, on the FV4005. So now we're going to talk a bit about the play style of this tank. This tank definitely needs to play passively, because this tank has absolutely no armor. Now, I have honestly zero idea why Blitzhanger says it's good in a 1v1 brawl, because that is definitely not true. But this tank is good at more in the back. It can snipe. For example, you'll see a lot of these often like in the corners of the map, just sniping in the back, but keep in mind that your accuracy is not the best when you compare it to some other tier 10 tank destroyers, but you do have no armor, so that can be a pretty nice thing to do. Long range sniping, I don't know why it just says average. I would say that it would be good. Now, keep in mind that you have no armor, so you should definitely never frontline. And one nice thing with this 10 degrees of gun impression is you are able to go to a hill in the back and peek above the hill. You have, since the tank is really tall, you're able to just peek up barely, get a shot out, and sneak behind. And this is kind of like a hit and run tank as well. You can use it as that, because as soon as you, when I say hit and run, I'm not saying like, more like a standard clipper, but I'm saying that like, I shouldn't really say hit and run, but basically you, can fire a shell, or reload empty your entire clip, and then while you're reloading, you can reposition to a better place, which is a nice thing to do. Now that 1300 damage that you can get out of one clip is just absolutely insane, and it can really destroy enemy vehicles. But now what we're going to do is we're going to go into some little replays here showing this FV4005 in action. So what we have here is a battle on Canal, and we are going to see this FV4005 in action, and you can see that with the super consumable and the extra, whatever you call it, the shell consumable on, that's what I recommend. Now, by the way, I don't have the 4005, but this is a replay here that I am featuring on the channel. So you can see that the speed boost is already being used. That is exactly what you want to do on this tank. You want to always use your speed boost a lot. You can really get this tank going fast. This tank is not the most mobile tank in any way, but keep in mind that now we are going almost the same speed as the Progetto 46, which is pretty insane. So remember I talked about long-range sniping can work out. Well, not only can long-range sniping work out, you can also, when I say this, I'm not saying front line, but you can go relatively close to the enemy tanks, specifically the medium tanks. You do have 10 degrees of gun depression, which can really work out. Just the fact that you're there can really scare enemy vehicles, and plus you are able to, when they're not looking, you're able to just slam shell after shell. And you can see right now he is using the consumable, and you can see that it speeds up the inner clip period, making it really easy to get all your shells out. That is definitely something that you need to do when you are playing this tank. As soon as you spot an enemy sitting out in the open that you know you can get all 3 shells out on, turn on that consumable, pop that consumable, and just farm shell after shell onto that enemy vehicle until you will deal a total of 1300 damage on him. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just push around over here and get some shots at this E50M. This tank has no armor, but it can actually go kind of frontline. But one thing you really need to keep in mind when you're playing this tank is you need to make sure that the enemies are not focused on you. If they are focused on you, you will be absolutely wrecked. Another tip in this tank is because it is an auto loader, you need to know when to reload your clip. As you can see right here, he reloaded his clip just in time there because there's no shots that he has. When you have no clear shots, you need to reload your clip. Basically, what you could do is just, if you don't see anyone near and anyone that looks like they're going to poke out within the next like 10-ish or less seconds, I usually just reload my clip no matter what. I'm that type of person that actually reloads my clip too much. Sometimes I miss an opportunity because of that. You definitely don't want to do that. But you also need to keep in mind that having 3 shells is way better than having 2 shells in your clip. You can see that the penetration is also excellent, with a standard shell almost able to go through the turret of the mouse, making it really nice. Now you can see here we go. 2 shells left, but he is not going to reload yet. He's going to try to get a shot into that mouse, which unfortunately he will not be able to, at least at the moment. But just stay passive and stay calm and be patient. That's the most important thing in this tank, is you need to be patient. Just like an FV4005 you need to be patient. Wait for the enemies to poke out and unleash that crazy clip that you have. You see, he has now done a total of like more than 700 damage onto that mouse, which is a lot. And that is just from 2 shells as well. If you're able to get your 3rd shell out, you are able to do a ton of damage, equivalent to most HE shells of most tier 10 tank destroyers. So you see that this 10 degrees of gun depression is being used very effectively at the moment. And this is what makes the FV4005 also really nice, is the 10 degrees of gun depression. You see one final shell for, there we go, we just absolutely nuked that mouse. And taken no hits in return, which is just absolutely insane. Another tip when you're playing this tank, by the way, if you see someone that's out in the open, your first shot should track them, because tracking them will make sure that they can't move and they can't back up, which means that you're able to unload your last 2 shells. And now you can see that he's still playing passive here in this FV4005, still playing passive. And that's really important, because you need to play passive. You have no armor at all. Even if you want to rush, even though you have your turret, this tank cannot really rush too well until it's late game, of course. One of the most important things in this tank is you need to conserve your hit points, because when you have your HP, you are able to survive a lot longer, and you are able to actually take trades. You're able to take trades in the end of the game. For example, now when it's a 3v3 scenario, if he does have to poke out on a mouse, even if he does get shot in return, that's fine, because you will do more damage in return, and that's why it's so important to take to conserve your hit points. Now, even with an HE shot from a tank destroyer, he will not be taken out, which is nice. Now, one mistake that I think is going on in this replay right now is he just reloaded his clip right now, which is perfect. Now, that's one thing you always need to pay attention to. When you're playing this tank, if you have no clear shots, check your clip. If your clip is not reloaded, then you need to reload that clip now, because that is just one of the most important things with this tank. Now, Also, remember to use your consumables. Remember to stay patient, stay passive. Don't bleed your hit points. Don't take unnecessary hits. I see so many 4005 players just sitting out in the open. Free HE damage for you, really. You can see, here we go. This is the good thing about saving your hit points, because now he's able to take shots even from an Object 704. He's able to take a shot from that VK if he has to. He's able to take shots from anything, really, because he still has the hit points. And that's why it's so important to play passive and be patient when you're playing this tank. So here in a 3v2 situation, it is going to be pretty insane, not insane, it's going to be pretty, intense here. Like, I can't even talk. I don't know why, but that's just what happens when I make like I make 2 videos today, and I make one, I do a whole stream for 3 hours today. That's what happens. I just can't talk. But anyways, we can see it's a 3v2 situation, and we have that Crewmate and that FV4005 sitting in the encounter cap, and it's going to be a pretty easy win now, because with this 10 degrees of gun impression, you're easily able to just farm these enemies down below, especially with this really solid penetration and this really devastating clip that this tank has. That's another thing to keep in mind when you're playing this tank, is use your 10 degrees of gun impression to your advantage. You have 10 degrees of gun impression for a reason. Use it to your advantage. When you need to use that gun impression, that really helps out a lot. If you are in a ridgeline scenario on a front line, that is something that you definitely do not want to do. But if you have the high ground, that is really nice, really helpful in this tank, because not only do you have an upper angle on people's turrets and upper plates, you are also a bit harder to hit, because not because you have armor, because you don't have armor, but because you're able to just poke down immediately. Very unfortunate low roll at 380, but he is going to get the ramming kill on that Crewmate, now sitting at 7.1k damage. Now you can see, this is just what's so important about the FV4005, is it's a really strong tank, but you have to play it right. You can't play like most TDs. This is not necessarily a camper, because when you're camping, you can't get out as much damage as you would like to, but this tank also can't frontline. This tank is kind of one of those tanks that's like, you have to do it in between. You can't frontline necessarily, or you definitely can't frontline, but you also not the best camper in a way, because it just does not really, the accuracy is decent, but it is not a crazy amount. And also, the thing is, for example, an Object 268 is able to camp well, because it is able to do 640 damage. And that means that if someone is backing up behind cover, you're able to do a huge amount of damage. The 4005, you're able to do 1300 damage, but only if you get all 3 shells out. And when you're really far from the enemy, usually once they get hit, they will most likely, assuming they are smart, they will most likely run. And, yeah, you won't be able to get all those shells out, which means you will be losing a huge amount of damage per minute. So you can see, this is the FV4005. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope you all learned something from today's video. So if you are new to the channel, if you enjoyed my content, feel free to subscribe and share the video, and if you enjoyed it, like it as well. But that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Feel free to comment down below what other videos you like, whether you enjoyed or did not enjoy this video, and maybe some other tanks or maps that you want me to review. But that's all I have for you guys today. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. I am Anakin Blitz, and I will see you in the next one.